Luke 4:18 in the Word of God says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come." This verse from the Bible, these verses from the Bible that Jesus himself spoke, have meant so much to me in my life. My squeaky chair, sorry. They brought tears to my eyes many times because I know what it is to be poor. I know what it is to be oppressed. I know what it is to be blind. Not literally blind, thank the Lord, but to be blind in spirit and to not be able to see and understand truth. I know it. I've been there. And the fact that Jesus came such a long time ago and said that that is what he was here to do has impacted me every time I've heard it when I was in a place of being poor and being oppressed and being blind. Because in those moments, I realized that is not what Jesus came so I could live the life of. He came to set me free. He came to make me rich in spirit. He came to open my eyes so that I could see him in this world, not just in heaven, now. That's why he came. And for my entire life, the journey of being able to know Jesus and to see him as he is and to learn to live loved fully has been long and it's been difficult for me. And I want to talk about that because this last year, as I read this verse, it would have been probably about May, I felt impressed upon me that God was saying to me that I was to lay claim to this verse for myself. That because I am filled with the life of Jesus and transformed by him, because I know him, I love him, and I've given my life to following him above anything else. Because of that, the life of Jesus is made alive through me. And therefore, what Jesus said, I can also say. And I'm going to find it again. And I'm going to read it again because it's been hard for me to acknowledge that I would have the right to lay claim to these words and to say them. But at the start of this journey, what I'm doing here on YouTube to share freely and openly about all that God has done, and they are great things and amazing things that few eyes have seen and few lips profess, and I am going to share them with you. But before I do that, and as I start on this journey, I think it is important for me, myself, and my soul to lay claim to these words for this channel. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. Are you poor? I have good news to share with you. He has anointed me and sent me to proclaim that captives will be set free. Is your soul a captive or slave to sin? Is your life a captive or a slave to religion? God has come to set you free, and he has sent me to proclaim this to you now. Also to proclaim that the blind will see. You know somebody who seems impossible, that it would be impossible for them to see truth, to ever find God, to know him, to be changed and transformed by Jesus? He is going to open eyes. And I proclaim that now because I believe it and I have seen it. He has opened my eyes, and I am one of the worst skeptics, the most extreme challengers of everything I'm ever told. And God opened my eyes. He set me free. He made me rich in blessings and in miracles and in gifts from the Holy Spirit of God himself. And likewise, he is opening eyes all around the world at this very moment, and it is only increasing. To proclaim that the oppressed will be set free. And the time of the Lord's favor has come. And I believe it because God told me to claim it, and he told me to believe this and to speak this forth. And so I am doing it now, and you can have confidence because it is just not just me who's saying these things. Jesus said it 2,000 years ago. So if it was true then, you can bet it is true now. But even more true, because we have open borders across the world now. It used to be that for truth and for the message of God and for stories of his miracles and of Jesus and what he was really doing, for those to be spread, people had to journey, they had to travel, they had to in person go and find somebody and share this good news with them. And so it was very time consuming and laborsome for the messages of Jesus to travel around the entire world. It was heavily reliant on people mobilizing themselves with the power of God to go forth and to share and to speak his words to a hurting generation and to the people around them. But now with social media and with the online world, all information is accessible to all of us. I will say that is changing. I know that there are places where things are being censored to a point where they cannot freely access this kind of information, probably can't even find this YouTube video. And my heart aches at that injustice. I know that social media can cut you off. So to say that we have complete freedom of expression and freedom to share our beliefs is not completely true anymore, but it is still true that it is easier now than ever before. And for that, I am very thankful. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to share on YouTube now about what God has done. So I think that I should just get right into it and just share a couple quick things. I don't even know if anyone's ever going to watch this video, and I don't think anybody has tuned into it at this point, but I just have to share and at least start off with something. So I'm going to just get personal for a moment here. My chair sounds so terrible. I guess I just want to tell you a bit about who I am. My name is Jessica. I'm a Canadian. I am a woman who has felt very oppressed all my life, not because I've lived in an oppressed nation or in an oppressive family or in an oppressive marriage. I have not been oppressed in those ways. I have felt oppressed most of my life and held captive by religiosity, by religious expectation, to know all the right things, to do all the right things, to say all the right things, and to live a perfect life. I was raised with that spiritual expectation preached to me every Sunday, preached to me from people that I knew and loved and respected, but it put a very false chain around me, quite literally, that stopped me from experiencing the life and the freedom that Jesus Christ had set out for me, because I was literally blinded and held captive and made poor by religion, which told me I was not enough, that I needed to do more for God, that I needed to be better, that I was a failure, that I could never be like somebody else. And so I learned at a young age to second guess myself, to feel that I was beneath everybody. I did feel that way. And to never really put myself out there. And in fact, I mean, I could get into all sorts of other struggles that I had. I'm learning lots about myself as I look back at my childhood. In fact, I would even say that I had not experienced much happiness as a child because I held myself back from experiencing it because so greatly did I believe I didn't deserve it. And so out of that place, and I'm going to get a little religious talking here, but just bear with me, okay? Out of that place, Satan, and I'm just going to say his name because I've experienced too many encounters with him to deny that there are spiritual forces at work in the world. Satan led me to a place where I was not free to hear what God was saying to me. And I believed a lot of untruths about the Bible and the way that I was interpreting it and applying it to my heart and my soul. And it really made me shrink myself in and just not enjoy my life. And yet I loved God and I did desire for him. I found Jesus when I was 3 years old, and I knew for myself, and I remember it. I knew for myself, I went to my mom and was like, how do I get to know Jesus? How do I become a Christian? I remember her praying with me. I remember feeling so excited because my heart was really in it. Really in it. And I remember that. I remember what it felt like. When I was 5, something terrible happened to me. And I remember times where I told nobody as a child, but I would go to God and I would agonize over what I'd experienced. And I would feel Jesus with me. When I was 6, I started having dreams, launching with a series of 3 dreams that I had, 3 consecutive nights, nightmares. They were actually nightmares, but they were about people I loved burning in flames in the basement of my home. And they would wake me up at night because I felt this desperation that I had to somehow save them. And yet Satan was laughing at me saying, what can you do to save them? They're already burning. There is no hope for them. Who are you that you think you could rescue them? And I would wake up from my dream and say, who am I? And I would cry because the dream had so tormented me that people that I loved were that lost that Satan had his grip on them, and I could do nothing to save them from it. And so at a young age, I became very, very passionate about Jesus and about what he could do for others and what he was doing for me. But I would always stop myself short. I would get a taste. I would hear something. I would feel his presence. And then I literally would. I'd stop myself and I'd say, but it's not for me. It's not for me. And I believed that. As a young child, I don't know when, somewhere between my 8th and 10th year of life, I don't remember where it came from, but somehow, again, the enemy of our souls, he somehow spoke to me that I was not going to live to be 30 years old. And though I was smart and in my rational mind, I knew it was ridiculous to believe it, I could not shake it because it would speak to me over and over. You will not live to be 30. You will not live to be 30. You will not live to be 30. And so in the back of my mind and in the deep recesses of my heart, I believed it because it just spoke over and over and over. And every time I confronted it with the truth of, we do not know the day or the hour when Jesus will return. We do not know the day or the hour when he will call us home. We do not know the future, only God does. I would confront it with those truths, and yet I felt so strongly I would not make it to 30 for some reason. And it was a great fear that I held on to. And so another thing probably that stopped me from living life and burdened me more is that I was like, okay, well, I got to do as much as I can for God and learn as much as I can about him and be as perfect a Christian as I can be while I still have time, so that hopefully I will have some impact on saving others from being lost forever. And then when I die, my life will have actually meant something. And that's the pressure I lived under. And I lived under it until I turned 30. It just never left me. It's really a crazy thing to be 29 years old and every day of your life to be wondering, is this the day I'm going to die? Oh my word, I shouldn't be thinking that. That's ridiculous. I don't even know. I don't know where this came from. That couldn't be from God. Is this the day I'm going to die? And I thought that over and over and over and over in my 29th year, because I was quite literally astounded I had even made it that long. And yet I knew it was foolishness of me to believe that or to think that, but I couldn't shake it. And the night I went to bed before my 30th birthday, it is only a miracle of God that I even slept, because I couldn't help but wonder, will I wake up tomorrow? And I had 2 kids at the time, and I cried so much that year thinking, maybe I will be taken from them, because I had lived under this lie along with so many other lies that I was not enough, that I could never do enough for God, that I was never worthy enough, and that there was not enough time. And I lived in fear. And I lived in a religious, oppressive mindset. And it stopped me from enjoying my life. But more than that, it stopped me from fully experiencing Jesus. And yet, there were times where though my mind and my soul were so weighted down, Jesus would reach through and he would do something absolutely miraculous. And so I often felt as a child that I was two different spiritual people. At times I had this confidence because I would see God move and I would believe him for miracles and he would come through for me. And then at other times I felt so unworthy and worthless that my life had no value. And I would go from this extreme to that extreme and this extreme to that extreme. And I had no solid ground to plant myself on. And so I would read the Bible and I would pray and I would try my best every day to look for God and to pray to God, your will be done. Take my life. I offer myself to you. Jesus, please speak to me. And I would earnestly seek him. But then I would follow it up with, he's not going to be able to come through because look how unworthy I am. My crooked smile, I had weight issues as a child, my lack of friendships. I felt like I was odd. I didn't fit in anywhere. I was never a good enough Christian. And for some reason, I had lots of encounters with people that like to point that out to me. Like, how dare you? I could never fathom that you would have done this terrible, awful thing. How dare you? And so I was very, very bound and very oppressed. Yet God moved anyways, because that is how powerful God is. So I know that this video is getting long. I see a couple of watchers and I just feel that I should just, because I have so little time without my kids and they're gone, that I should just roll into a story. And so I'll probably share it again on a shorter video one day. But I want to share this story with those couple of you who are watching. When I was 12 years old, and again, remembering I had grown up in churches with pastors preaching sermons of, do this for God, do this for God, do this for God. And I was a very, very confused child. When I was 12 years old, I believed that blasphemy, which if you're a believer, you've heard the word. If you're not a Christian, you may have never heard the word, or at least in the context I'm describing. But the Bible talks about blaspheming the Holy Spirit, blaspheming God, and how you'll never be forgiven. And I remember hearing some kind of sermon as a young child about blasphemy, and I formed my set of beliefs about blasphemy based on this sermon that I'd heard. So I'm 12 years old, and I believed the blasphemy was as simple as, with your lips, uttering words out loud that said God was something opposite of who he was. And so one night I'm brushing my teeth. I'm not thinking about anything. I've just had a regular day. My mom told me, go get ready for bed. So I'm down in my basement of my little split level house and I'm brushing my teeth. And the oddest moment happens. Brushing my teeth, I go to spit, I rinse out my mouth, and this thought pops into my head, say this. And I did. It just happened so quickly. And I stood up from rinsing my mouth and spitting in the sink, and I said, God is the devil. I just spoke it out loud. I don't even know where it came from. It was just like, there it was, say it, I said it. And then I was like, holy crap, I've just blasphemed God. Because I know he's not the devil. He's been good to me. He's blessed me. He's spoken to me. He's healed me before. He's done miracles. And I said it. And the only reason I must have said this sounds so crazy. Maybe you think I'm crazy. I was really crazy, but whatever it was. I thought the only reason I must have said that is because my heart is evil and my heart is not for God, and it never has been. And that's why I have felt the way I have, is because my heart is not turned to God, or I never would have said that, because I know it's blaspheming God. And if I loved him, I wouldn't have. And in one moment, the simple thought and words that I spoke out that I didn't really believe, but I thought deep inside me somewhere I must. I literally believed that God had left me forever. I believed it. And I remember being in that bathroom at 12 years of age. And I remember just being sick, so sick. It's like everything that I could even slightly enjoy in life was gone, because it just mattered nothing to me as the very thing I had given my life and my heart to, Jesus, had been removed from me. I thought it. I don't know why I was so blind and so misguided, but I was. And I just agonized. And the agony didn't stop. I couldn't sleep that night. I cried. I cried. I cried. And I cried. My poor younger sister, who I shared the room with, she didn't sleep great either. And the next day I woke up and I felt dead. I felt completely dead. No emotion. Sick in my stomach. Nothing, literally nothing mattered to me. And I lost the ability to connect with people and to feel emotion and to enjoy anything in my life. And it carried with me, not just for hours, for days. Until my parents started to notice and they started to question, why don't you smile? Why do we hear you crying so much? And my sister was worried for me and praying for me. And I felt it was all useless because I had done an unforgivable sin. There was no going back. My heart was evil. God had rejected me. And that was the end. And the longer the time went on, the more I realized that everything good in all the world was not good when God wasn't in it. And I believed he was gone from me forever. And so people would ask me about it, and I couldn't talk, and I couldn't tell them what I'd done. I couldn't even tell anybody what I had done. I was just so confused. So I became incredibly depressed. And when I was alone and I would try to sneak away alone often, I would literally call out loud to God and I would say, just kill me now. Kill me, send me to hell now. I cannot bear to live in this world, seeing your goodness all around me, and being denied from experiencing it, because I realized and I experienced that goodness and love and beauty mean nothing without God. Because God created them first, and they are part of who he is in his nature. And it didn't matter how much goodness was given to me by others and how much beauty was around me and how much love my family tried to pour into me. I received none of it. And it literally meant nothing to me because I didn't have God. And so I couldn't tell people what I had done. I was so humiliated. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. And I just went deeper and deeper and deeper into this really dark abyss. And so I had a babysitting commitment that I'd made a while back. And I went to babysit because, I was still plodding through life, just trying to somehow survive with the fact that I, was alive, and yet I had nothing to live for. So I went to my babysitting job and put the kids to bed, and I was cooking some food. She'd asked me to cook something up for her next day. And so I was cooking some food in the kitchen there, and I opened a drawer and there was big long knives in it. And I pulled out a really long knife and I started sobbing. And I said to God, why won't you kill me? Why won't you take me? I'm agonizing day after day. I'm dragging everybody down with me. I can't take it anymore. If you won't take my life, I'll end it. I will end it. And I took that knife. The blade was like this. And I grabbed the handle and I found my heart and I put the edge of the blade on my chest in that kitchen. And I leaned my hand and I measured the distance that I would need to step back in order to fall forward so my hand would land on the counter at the right angle to stab it into my heart and end me forever. I just can hardly believe I did this, 12-year-old girl. So I was okay, thinking through the logistics, is this going to work? How is this possible? How would I plan this out? And I remember, it's just so weird. I remember kind of going through these motions of gauging distance, this and that, all these things. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't move my hands and I couldn't move my body. It was like I had lost nerve control of my muscles and my bones, like just gone. And I remember in my head thinking, I'm just going to do it. I can't live a moment longer. I think this can work. And then when I couldn't move, all of a sudden, this extreme worry flooded over me. What if I attempt and I fail and now I'm mangled and I still have to live in this agony? Plus I'm mangled and it doesn't, all of a sudden I became very, very afraid. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I'll do it another day. I can't do it right now. And then I could move again. I set the knife down and I crumpled to the ground and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And I think I probably cried for 2 hours until I figured, oh, they're probably coming home. I better get my composure back together. And then I went home, sick as ever. But I went home with a question in my head. Maybe the reason all of a sudden I felt that I couldn't move and then this great fear came upon me that what if it didn't work is because God put that thought and immobilize my body so that I wouldn't end my life. And a glimmer of hope rose up within me. If it could be true that it was God or an angel even, because it was weird, I felt I could not move. If maybe even an angel had been restraining me from moving, and God had put a fear that this may not work and a doubt in my mind, if it were true that maybe God did that, the only reason I could fathom he would do that is because maybe he still loved me. And I had hope. Small sliver of hope, but I had some hope. And so my mom and dad asked me again, we need to get you help. And I said, I'm open to talking to somebody. Because for the first time in quite a while, I don't remember how long it had been exactly at that time, but probably a few weeks, I felt that maybe I should just look into hope a little bit and give it a chance. And that maybe God was more powerful than I even knew he was. And so I said, sure, I'll try some counseling. And so they found this guy. He was just a school teacher, Christian Bible-fearing guy. And he got this book by Max Lucado called In the Grip of Grace. And he's like, we're going to read this book. Because when I sat in my first session with him, I remember him asking me questions. I couldn't answer them. I remember him saying, why is it you're so sad? And I could not say. I remember him saying, how can I help you? And all I could say is, I don't know. And then I cried. I felt totally ridiculous because I couldn't communicate. I was just so heavy. And so he's like, okay, we're going to read this book. And thank you so much, if you ever watch this video, for recommending that book. Because it was safe. I could take a book. I could go home. I could read it alone in the quiet. And I could cry. And I could feel sick and just release all the emotions I had. And I could ponder. And I could open my mind and my heart up to possibilities. Because of a book. It's what I needed. And I would retreat with this book. And if you have any questions about Jesus and about freedom and about grace, this is a great book. A really great book. And I could read this book and think. And God would put little thoughts into my head. And he would nudge me. And I remember going back for another session. And the man asked me, what did you think of? I can't even think exactly what happens in the book, but there's something about like a river of God's grace that completely submerges this person. And then she comes out completely covered by grace. And anyways, I think that's what it is. Now this is like, I'm almost 36. So now we're talking a little while ago. Anyways, I remember him asking me about it. What did you think of that? And I remember saying to him, it made me think that maybe there's a chance that even though I've done something incredibly terrible, and again, remember, I thought it was the most heinous thing I had done, and I couldn't tell people. I said to him, even though I've done something incredibly terrible, it made me think that maybe there's a chance that Jesus is strong enough to cover over all of that and to make me right with God again. And he prayed with me. And he prayed that I would experience and discover grace. And then I went home. And later, my family was gone. I was home alone. I went to my basement. I think this probably was like the next day already. I went to my basement. Nobody there. And I threw myself on the ground. I said, God, if there's even a chance for me, I give myself to you. Jesus, I desperately need you. I want you. Please forgive me. If you're as powerful as they say you are, maybe you can forgive me. And I threw myself prostrate, laying on the ground, and I sobbed. And all of a sudden, for the first time, like in that magnitude, for the first time in forever, but for the first time in a long time, I started to feel warmth, and the warmth increased. And all of a sudden, the entire room that I was in was filled with the glory of God. And Jesus spoke to me. I forgive you. You are mine. And I was saved. In that moment, nothing has ever compared to that since. Nothing. It was wonderful. And I know I'm sobbing like a total baby right now because it was quite the journey I'd been on, right? But it was wonderful. I remember laughing and like crying, and then the whole room was bright. Like everything was just bright. And I felt so warm, and like my whole body was just trembling. And it was the Spirit of God taking over my life. And I surrendered fully to Him. And I knew I was forgiven. And it was just quite that simple. And that my life was transformed, and the trajectory of my life, it really, really changed. So there are many other stories I want to share, but that one for me is the most pivotal story for me. And I believe that it illustrates, like, granted in a really odd way that most people would never experience, because probably most people are smarter than I was at that time, but it does illustrate just how much we need God. And I know, because I experienced it, that hell, I could care less about the semantics of arguing about what exactly hell is and who's going there and is it eternal or does God give people a second chance. I don't want to get into that. That is not what this channel is for, and that is not what I'm here for. What I'm here to share, because I know it, is that hell is the absence of God. And I was living it on the earth. And when Jesus saved me from that, I knew He could do anything. Anything. And my hope has been in Him ever since. And it cannot be shaken, and it cannot be taken away. And boy, has the enemy of our souls, has Satan tried. There have been many things I've gone through since, and he has tried to take that from me. But my faith has been quite literally a rock that is unshakable. And on that rock, Jesus has been building up my life, building up my soul, building up my mind and my body in the strength of the living God. And out of that faith that literally has not been robbed or shaken by anything Satan has been able to do to me or confuse me with in all those years since, out of that faith, God has come through, and Jesus has performed miracles. And He has spoke to me. And the things that happened in the Bible, in the New Testament, when Jesus came and people were healed and all these things were happening, I had been witness to those things. And some of those things I have actually spoken out of the faith that I have in Jesus and the great, incredible love and thankfulness I have. I love you. So thankful. I have been able to actually speak forth healing, not just for other people, but for myself too. And I want to share those stories, and I'm really excited. And there will be many more videos coming. And I'm also very excited to share my great-grandmother's stories, because if you ever doubted that God is alive and that He's interested in your life, I can promise you that I have stories to share, and my great-grandmother's life has stories to share, and many other people have stories to share. I'm sure you can find somebody that prove that he is very interested in you. Very interested in you. Just as interested in you as he was interested in me. And he fought for me. It was not me fighting for me. I had given up on myself. But God fought for me. And Jesus fought for me. It's the most beautiful thing. Because on my own, I always feel unworthy. But when I'm with God, I feel like I'm on top of the world because of what Jesus has done. And I pray that you will experience that too. God, you are good. And just thank you so much for what you've done for me. And I pray that anybody who watches this video, that you would come through for them like you have for me then and many times since. In Jesus' name. Thanks for watching.